Greetings and a warm welcome to the Caribbean. This is Tropico 6 and this is the latest entry in the Tropico franchise. Look at the Statue of Liberty being brought into our island right there. I am so excited to be getting into this. This game has been getting pretty great reviews from those who have already played and reviewed. It's only just been released to us, the mere public, although it has been in beta for a few days. Now, for those of you that have never played a Tropico game before, this is your typical city building sim, but with quite extensive management features to take care of. And Tropico 6 is split into 4 particular eras: the colonial era, the World Wars era, the Cold War era, and the modern era. And we take on the role of El Presidente. Of course, if you're familiar with the Tropico franchise, then none of that will be unfamiliar to you. The trend continues, the traditions continue, Tropico continues. But without any further ado, guys, let's go ahead and watch the opening cinematic here to the game.
Plans for the wall have been approved.
The Cuban commandant died. The UK has left the European Union.
Which has caused a
Big crisis in Spain.
Oh, I love the cultural references there, all in good humour, of course. Here we are, El Presidente. Just the right mixture of dictator with charm. So this game was supposed to be released last year, but it was delayed until the end of March 2019.
Fellow Tropicans, thanks to me, Tropico is an undisputed paradise. But the values of our paradise are now being threatened. Threatened by populists and despots. I, El Presidente, will prevent this. I accept the nomination for another presidential term. I will make Tropico even greater, even bigger, and even better. Instead of walls, I will build bridges, bringing Tropico's islands and people together, rather than separating them. New means of transportation will offer great opportunities of exchange to you and our visitors. I will bring diversity, culture, and the wonders of the world to Tropico, so that all other
literally
nations will look upon us with envy.
That just sets the tone for the game, doesn't it?
El Presidente. Vote for Tropico 6 or else.
Oh. Well then, guys, I think that pretty much gives you all the information you need to know about the type of game that Tropico is going to be. But of course, there is more to it than just silly cultural references and humour. There's actually a lot of addictive gameplay mechanics because of the city management stuff. And we're going to be getting into all of that as we get started here. So folks, I hope you enjoy this episode. This is Tropico 6. I'm your host, Fuzz. Let's get started. Now, the first thing you may want to look at before actually starting any of the gameplay modes, whether the tutorial, the sandbox, or the campaign or multiplayer, is going ahead and customising your El Presidente and the palace in which he or she lives. Yes, you are not limited to a male El Presidente. You can have a female version of the character if preferred. along with the fact that you can go ahead and make various other changes to them as well. The clothes that they wear and the beard that they have, etc, etc. So despite the fact that the cinematic kind of makes you feel like you're shoehorned in, you're absolutely not. So I will keep the male presentation, although just to show you what the female one would look like. Okay. And let's go ahead and have a look at some of these outfits here. Now, some of them are going to be locked. We will have to go ahead and, you know, do various missions and stuff to get everything available for usage. But we can have the slightly unserious Hawaiian tourist look, or the far more serious Mafia look if we wish. And we can just mouse over some of these to see them. We can even see the ones that are currently locked. So, for example, the pirate outfit, we need to complete the Pirate King mission. The academic dress. The Egyptian Pharaoh outfit. Have the Sphinx and the Great Pyramid at the same time. We can even dress up as the Roman Emperor. But to unlock that, we need to hold no elections for 20 years in a post-colonial era. So good luck getting your citizens to to not rebel during that time. And we can, of course, also have a pretty decent 70s look as well. So maybe we could go for a Mafia-style El Presidente. Not sure why we would do that, but why not, eh? And, of course, we can go for the hat to match. Or maybe we could go for Mafia style with Hawaiian tourist hat. Yeah, you can intermingle these particular outfits and hats and what have you. So Mafia with a top hat, why not? And you can go ahead and I think the bent pipe actually looks pretty good. Be nice if we could turn this dude around, but I don't think we can pan the camera from this particular screen. Now, just in case you're wondering where you're going to be seeing El Presidente, he'll basically be wandering around the palace and whatnot as you're playing your game. So you will see him actually out in the game world. Yeah, I think I like the glasses that we're wearing right now. Although with that pipe and that top hat, makes me think you need something a little bit more sophisticated. Something like these pretty dab round glasses there. Yeah. And as I say, you can go ahead and customise the beard if you want. Or you can take the beard off. Ugh, that's why men wear beards. Okay. Yeah, I think we'll keep the default option actually there. Hair. Yeah, pretty cool hairstyles that you can select. But since we're wearing a hat, we'll just stick with the default hairstyle. And you can, of course, if you wish to do so, change your complexion. Okay, from Caucasian, Asian, Latino, and Afro-Caribbean. We'll just stick with the default for the time being. And then you can make a few changes to your outfit colours as well. So we don't have to have the black Mafia suit. We can have a pink one if we wanted. Or silver, green. I think we'll keep it as the default. And then I'm assuming this will change. I was going to say the shirt or the tie. But it appears to be the tie. Didn't actually mean to do that. Right, and what else? Yeah, we can change the beard colour and the hair colour. So don't get a whole lot of options with those. But we do for the hair. Okay, some pretty strange choices there. But go for it, guys. Go all out with how it is you want El Presidente to look. And I'm sure we'll be finding some interesting characters popping up over the internet. So I think we'll keep... where's my hat gone? No, not the Mafia hat. The top hat, that's what I want. Yeah. And yeah, I think we're happy with that now. Right, the other things we can do is we can select the traits of El Presidente. This actually is going to have some gameplay effect as we play through the various game modes as well. So the default, as you can see, is kind of normal. I won't go through all of these. I don't want to bore you this early on into the video anyway. But very briefly, we can select some of these others and you can see the gameplay effects that they will have. So I've already had a quick nose at these and I think I'm going to go for the charismatic option, which increases the standing with factions by 2 and the relations with superpowers by 2. So as far as I'm aware, there is no negative result of selecting the charismatic option, but we do get those positive aspects, which has got to be good. And then finally, we can actually customise our home, which appears on the various maps that we play. So you might want to spend some time on this. The layout is pretty self-explanatory. I think, to be honest with you, I'm going to go for the backyard. I want to keep my back garden a little bit private. I don't want prying guys in it. So we'll just have a nice driveway here. Nice entrance road to the main entrance to the palace. And then we'll have our own secluded pool and fountain or whatever the case is at the back there. We can turn the screen here though, if we want to see behind it, which is pretty helpful because we can change all of this stuff as well. But if we just come around to the front, go on to path. So there's quite a few customization options that we can have. Red carpet. Ugh. Let's go for the, well, I think I like the irregular cobblestone actually. Looks pretty awesome. And we can go ahead and change the type of wall that we want. Around the outside this is the boundary to the palace. So right now we've got the brick wall. We can have the hedge. Plastered wall. Victorian style. The military style wall. Or the heavy military. I think we'll go for one of the not so in your face options here. Maybe the hedge. Yeah, we'll go for the hedge. Why not? Looks like we can add some extensions. A fish tank. It's pretty cool. Glass pyramid. Helipad. The roof garden. Or the hologram, but some of these are locked, as you can see. Let's go for the rooftop garden. Not too silly, but gives us a little bit of our private space, doesn't it? I mean, it's purely aesthetic anyway, as far as I'm aware. You can't really use this stuff. Garden. We can go ahead and change the default garden that's in place there. We could have it as a larger pool. A flamingo pond if we don't want a pool. I suppose we could still dip our toes in with the birds. Bunker. Maze. So, some pretty nice options there. I think we'll go for the... Let's go for the pool, shall we? And then anything else? We could put like a rock or something in. But this is around the front here. Yeah, again, some of this stuff is locked. So let's just have a topiary in place. That looks pretty cool. And then we can go ahead and change our garden for a boulder. Or any of these other options instead. Alright, let's keep the default. I like that garden with the palm tree. And now we can actually go ahead and change the palace itself. We've already changed the outskirts and the garden and everything. But the building work itself can be changed so we can affect the colour. As you can see here. Some of these are pretty cool. I think we'll go for the good old terracotta. So just a nice brick colour. And then we can change the colour of the roof as well. Well, not the roof, sorry, actually. We can change the roof, I think. But this is just changing the various pieces of decor. Yeah, let's just stick to the original for that. Yeah, I like that one. And the window style as well. They look a little bit blurry, I'm not sure why that is, but in-game it won't look like that. Okay, so you can't really get a good idea of what this looks like. Oh, I think they just hadn't loaded properly. Okay, that's better, we can get a better look now. Let's go for Windows style 2, shall we? Okay, so that's our palace. Got a nice rear garden. You can also come and, you know, check out our subjects from the roof. From our roof garden. Make sure that everybody's behaving themselves. And if not, we can unleash some dictatorship upon them. Make sure that they do behave themselves. So let's go ahead. Yeah, I guess we could have just clicked that. Yep, exit customization mode. And now as we play a game, we'll find that all of those customizable options that we've gone ahead and selected from El Presidente to the Palace will be included in game. Okay folks, so let's move on to some actual gameplay. And since I don't have a whole lot of experience in Tropico 6 myself, I've just gone ahead and selected one of the tutorials for now. Not the first tutorial, since that's just about movement pretty much, and some of the really basic gameplay mechanics, which I do recommend you check out if you're new to the series, but for the sake of the video, I'll go ahead and skip that. And we'll move on to this lesson for citizens. Now, I'm going to also run through some of the stuff that I already know about this game with you, just in case some of it doesn't make any sense. But the way that Tropico 6 is going to work, I'll just go ahead and pause the game for the time being here. By the way, you can see your basic game controls down here. I mentioned that, the pause and play button. So you can go ahead and pause the action as you just go ahead and move around the map, see what you've got, and not have to worry about things going wrong, etc, etc. If the game is in motion, you can speed it up by up to 4 times the normal speed. And that's useful if you're just going ahead waiting for elections or wanting to go ahead and, you know, get buildings built and you've got a lot in the queue, etc. But for now, let's just keep things paused. Now, the way that citizens are going to work and that residential houses are built, a little bit different to SimCity, where you go ahead and select where you want to build your residential, industrial and commercial zones. In Tropico, citizens are going to move into wherever the heck they like, okay? Now, you'll know when a citizen or citizens have moved in because you'll start seeing random shacks set up over the place. So let's go ahead and start playing here. And the game tutorial wants us to go ahead and select construction, and we'll go ahead and select residential. And what we're going to want to do is build these residential areas over the shacks that the citizens put into place. Now, since we're only going to really be having poor citizens for the time being, we're going to select the bunkhouse, because citizens that live in shacks are basically going to be classified as homeless, and that isn't a good thing because it means that they're not going to be voting for us in elections if they don't even have anywhere to live. So just here, for example, you can see a shack. Okay, so it'd be a good idea to go ahead and build a bunkhouse over this shack. And now once you go ahead and select to build an item, something you're going to notice is that it's not going to be built immediately. It's not even going to be building immediately. Right now we've got the construction in place and we're waiting for workers to turn up in order to start getting on with the job of turning this shack into a new bunkhouse. As a matter of fact, they've just basically deleted that shack and will be building the bunkhouse in its place. Now, shacks are generally bad to have, but bunkhouses are needed. So don't just go ahead and build anything on top of a shack. Instead, you will want to build residential items there. Now, the particular quest that we're doing at the moment wants us to go ahead and make sure we have 2 bunkhouses in place. So what I'm going to do here is look around for yet another shack. We could go ahead and build a bunkhouse anywhere, but seeing as how we don't particularly want shacks, it'd be a good opportunity to go ahead and replace the ones that there currently are. So if we hit the space button, this will bring us out to the maximum zoom level. We can see the full set of islands that we've got access to right now as part of this tutorial level, and including this volcano island here with a nice little smiley face in the middle of that volcano. So once again, we'll just zoom out and see what it is that we've got to work with here. And I can't see any more shacks. Ah, there we go, look, a couple of shacks just there. So let's go ahead and drag the road out a little bit beyond what the tutorial is asking us to do, but it does give us the freedom to still do that. And in their place, we'll go ahead and build those residential bunkhouses. You can use the middle mouse wheel to turn and orient the buildings that you want to go ahead and build. Oh, okay, so for the sake of the tutorial, we do need to build only on this particular island. So let's just zoom back in. So we've got the blue square. Obviously later on we'll be able to build wherever the heck we like, but right now that isn't going to be the case. So let's go ahead and get this thing turned around and plonk it down there. We've already built one of our 2 bunkhouses, so we can go ahead and test out the speed function here, as the second bunkhouse is indeed built and put into place for us. And there we have it. Okay, so now we get a bit of information on economic wealth, and this is basically going to be just teaching us how we can find out the wealth of our citizens, which is of course going to determine the buildings that we plonk down, because if our citizens are poor, it's pointless putting in buildings that require high amounts of wealth, as they're never going to be occupied. They're just going to cost us money. So the bunkhouse, for example, that we put down only requires a wealth of being poor. Pretty handy when you consider that the vast majority of our citizens are themselves right now poor. So if we go ahead and select the Fisherman's Wharf, which is a place a commercial or / industrial place that our people can come and work at, we can go ahead and see what level of wealth our workers are at. And if we select one of these workers here, Raquel Lopez, we can see, oops, did not mean to click off you, we can see that this particular worker is of poor wealth. Okay, and that goes ahead and just completes that little mini quest as part of the tutorial here. Now, the thing is, we may have learned that one particular worker is indeed poor, but that doesn't really help us in the context of planning our city. We can't plan an entire city based on one particular individual. So what we can do is check out... Oh, it wants us to do this again. Oh yeah, okay. One thing I need to do before going on to what I was just talking about here is check out the happiness of the worker. So back on Raquel once more, we can see their wealth there as poor, but if we go over to this middle tab here, we can see their happiness. Now their overall happiness in this case is quite low, and the reason for that is all their other individual happiness tabs that you just saw were also low. And we're going to have to go ahead and boost their happiness as part of this particular tutorial. I was going to go ahead and tell you about the fact that one particular worker isn't really all that important in the grand scheme of things, but it seems the tutorial wants us to concentrate on one particular worker for the time being. So once we access the construction menu, you saw a moment ago we went to the residential tab to build a bunkhouse, we can see there are various other tabs which will fulfill the needs of our citizens. So seeing as how Raquel is not having much fun, let's go ahead and stick some entertainment in. And in particular, the tavern is what the tutorial wants us to go ahead and build. And we can basically plonk that anywhere within this green area. The green area actually indicates that that this particular area isn't doing too bad on fun right now. Otherwise it would be orange or red. But we'll go ahead and stick the tavern in as per our instructions. Just like that. And as with all buildings, we're going to have to wait a few moments for the workers to come, get it built, and then we'll have to wait for new workers to come in order to go ahead and occupy the tavern so that it can be used. Now while we're waiting for that, let's just briefly talk about some of the other things that we can see on screen right now. This freighter stuff is telling us how much we've got coming in from freighters in terms of imports and exports, so how much money we're making. So we'll just go ahead and hide that for the time being. Oh no, it's this button here, my mistake. Okay, and also at the top here you'll see there are 3 sets of numbers. The first is our money. That's how much we have in our treasury. So right now we've got just shy of $200,000. I expect that to reduce continually throughout the tutorial as we start building more stuff here. Our population, pretty self-explanatory. That's how many citizens we have here. It's also pretty much the number of people that we have towards our workforce. Now of course a lot of these are going to be children and cannot work, but we can actually, depending on how much of a dictator we want to be, force children, I believe as young as 14, into work. So we'll talk about that at a later time. And also this 100% figure here on the right hand side of this pane is our approval rating, or our support. This is basically the number of people we can count on to vote for us in the next election. And as far as I'm aware, this tutorial will delve a little bit further into that a little bit later on. But basically, elections are very, very important. And normally, you're going to have an election held once every 10 years. You can see the time of year, the date rather, down at the bottom left-hand corner here. And when an election comes around, which I believe is 1915 will be the next election, and then 1925, 35, 45, etc. When an election comes around, we're going to need to make sure that we've got enough support in place to continue on with our presidency. Because if we don't, and that election goes ahead, and we fail getting elected in that election, that's game over. Okay, so if you fail at an election in Tropico 6, that is the end of the game. So we need to keep this as high as possible, obviously over 50% at all times. Though don't worry if it does drop below 50%. There are various things you can do should your citizens want to hold an election to prevent them from giving you a game over. And a couple of those will be spoken of, I'm sure, as we get a little bit further into this tutorial. So let's just go ahead and speed things up here, because this tavern is taking a mighty long time to get built, and occasionally that does happen. We do have to wait for our workers to be put into place. As you can see, they're now here. And there we have it, the tavern is built. So now we're going to learn a little bit about the almanac. So we saw already the happiness of one individual who was working at our Fisher's Wharf. But as I mentioned, that doesn't particularly help us with building a city, since the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few. So what we're going to do now is head over to the almanac, and if we select the happiness tab, we can see the overall happiness of our city. So we're not just looking at one particular individual here, we're looking at the average across everybody. And actually that individual gave us a good idea as to what was going to be needed, because the fun of the city, that is all the citizens overall, is particularly low. We can go ahead here and select the fun tab, and that just goes ahead and completes the quest there. So we can see what it is we've got in place in terms of entertainment. We've got 2 taverns in place and an opera house, in fact. And we can see that we're not really making any money from those entertainment buildings. So let's go ahead and close this tab here. And we're just going to get a little bit of information telling us where it is we can specifically locate the problems as to why it is that fun is very, very low. And to do this, we're going to use the overlays function. And we can see our fun coverage here. Okay, so there's lots of areas. Basically green is good. Okay, so yellow, orange is getting a little bit poor, and then red is very poor indeed. But as you can see, all of this is green right now, but this is fun coverage. Okay, so that's not the be all and end all. What we need to check next is the fun quality. So if we go back over to overlays and select fun quality, you can see a lot of the residents here are not happy in any way, shape or form. We're going to have to do something about that, but it's not only on this little island here. If we zoom out, we can see on our other islands as well, such as this one here. Go back to fun quality. A lot of the residents are very, very unhappy with us. So we're going to head over to the construction, then go to the tavern here and build a tavern on this particular island. Hopefully that will help people just chill out a little bit, go and get a drink. But once again, of course, we do have to go ahead and build the tavern. You will have to build a tavern on both of the other islands, okay, including the island where we've got our custom built palace. So this is what we fiddled about with earlier on. And if we look in closely, we might even see our Presidente himself. Yep, going back home, look. Oh yeah, it's looking a little bit like Heisenberg from that angle. And what we can do, because this second tavern is taking quite a while, is actually use 600 of our hard-earned dollars, or rather our citizens' hard-earned tax dollars, to go ahead and build that almost instantly.
Happy is impossible, of course.
So that just saves us having to wait around for it to be built. You can do that on pretty much every building. And if you're queuing up a lot of buildings, you're going to either have to wait a long time for them all to be built, or you could spend a healthy amount of dough in getting them all built pretty much instantly.
We now come to the troubling part of your job. Not everyone knows you are doing such great work. How crazy is that?
Okay, so now we're getting into really the heart of Tropico 6, which is going to be the politics and winning our citizens over to actually vote for us come the elections, or making them think that they're voting for us come the elections. We can talk about that a little bit later on. So now we're going to have to witness their politics in order to determine how best to please them, so that they will actually go ahead and sign that ballot paper in the correct place come election day. And the way we do this is in a similar way to how we checked out their previous needs, but instead of going over to the happiness tab, we go over to the politics tab of the almanac. And we can see the various factions of politics that we have currently inhabiting our city. So we've got a little bit of capitalism, a little bit of communism. You know, our citizens are pretty much divided on those two issues, and we have some that are indifferent, don't really care either way. We also have other factions such as the religious faction and also the militarist faction. So the more of these areas that we satisfy, the more of these citizens are going to be voting for us come election day. So let's go ahead and click the capitalist tab for now. And the tutorial wants us to go ahead and click the moderate capitalists. And then we can see all the citizens that occupy this particular political persuasion. So if we go ahead and select Carlos Ramiro here, and go ahead and select his happiness tab, we can see his views, political views, individually there. Along with his overall happiness as well, of course. So we can see that it looks like he needs a job as well. Let's go ahead and close this for now. Right, so once again we're going to head back into the almanac. And this time we're going to just look at things more generally here. In fact, that's it. So we've already seen that. We can go ahead and close it. We're now going to be introduced to faction demands, which are kind of like little mini quests that are going to pop up from time to time and allow us to boost our standing with those specific factions we were just looking at.
We do not have enough of the things that I want.
So by doing this quest, we'll go ahead and boost our faction with the militarist people. Okay, now we can go ahead and decline these demands when they pop up, but if we do so, we'll also lose faction with that particular faction. So we're going to go ahead and select accept for this one, and we need to build a watchtower. So a nice easy one, and you are timed in doing this, although it's plenty of time, so don't worry about that, at least at the moment anyway. Okay, we'll just go ahead and plonk this down anywhere, I guess. There will do fine. And once more, we can go ahead and build it instantly, or we can wait and save $300.
Presidente, your aid is appreciated. With your help, we'll double our armed forces, redouble our efforts, and halve our expectations.
So as you can see, faction demands at their core are very, very simple. But the gameplay mechanic itself does get a little bit more complicated than what we've just seen. So a nice easy one to start off with there. Let's go ahead, complete this, and collect more standing for our faction. Straight away we're getting slightly more complications here in our demands. This time we're going to have to go ahead and select a choice. Make a choice.
So you care for your Tropican comrades and win their hearts and souls, though you do not get to keep them, okay?
Speaking of souls, I'd imagine that El Presidente is looking forward to joining me in heaven, rather than going to the other place. The Good Shepherd looks after the sheep, don't you agree?
So basically this is going to work exactly the same as the last faction demand, but before we can actually do the demand, we have to choose to upset one of the other factions. So let's go ahead, for example, and build a bunkhouse. This is going to upset the religious faction, and if we went ahead and chose the chapel, we'd upset the communist faction. And now for this particular faction demand, there's going to be an ultimatum, which means that we need to go ahead and complete the demand within this specific time limit. This time it's 2,280 days. Dead easy for this particular example, so we're not going to fail this. Don't click this button down here or you'll go ahead and lose faction or lose standing with the faction. So what we're going to do now is build 2 bunkhouses. And we've seen this before, how this works. So we go to residential, select bunkhouse, try and replace them, replace the shacks with these bunkhouses, and go for one more here. And once again, you don't have to, but we can quick build in order to get these done, and just didn't get the tutorial advanced.
We even had cake to celebrate.
Presidente, your aid is appreciated. With your help, we'll double our armed forces, redouble our efforts, and halve our expectations.
So for this demand, we can actually choose our reward, either 5 to the militarists faction, or $5,000 just flat out into our treasury. So let's go ahead for the standing, because we've still got plenty of money. And now you can see that our political support is starting to waver. This is always going to happen. It's never going to remain on 100%. And if we go over to the politics tab of the almanac, we can get a little bit more information on that. We have 63% that if there was an election today of the population would vote for us, which is absolutely fine. That would keep the game going. And then you can see there's 13% in opposition to us who would definitely vote against us were there an election right now, and 24% who are currently undecided. So if we go ahead now, we can hold an election speech, and this will help those who are undecided to vote for us. But not all of them.
The citizens are demanding elections, Presidente. It seems that they want a choice in how they are ruled. So selfish.
Okay, so as you can see, we're in March 2019-15, which is going to be election time. And we can go ahead and form an election speech here, which will hopefully increase our standing a little bit. So we can acknowledge issues, although all of these say that it doesn't actually contribute in any way to the approval of our voters. So let's go ahead and select fun, just because it's so low. We can also praise a faction. Now you can see the communists are already fairly happy with us. So let's just go ahead and select the militarists, because they're so low right now. We can blame a superpower if we want to boost our standing with various factions, or boost our support rather of the citizens. But if we do that, we'll actually lower our standing with the superpowers, and we don't want them destroying us. So for now, let's just select no one. I don't think we need to select one of the superpowers for now. And then we can promise improvement. Again, we'll probably want to pick an area that's quite low, such as fun right now. And once we've gone ahead and made all our selections, we can go ahead and deliver the speech.
My friends, my people, welcome to a golden age of prosperity for every living Tropican. It was your trust that made it possible. Your trust of me, El Presidente. My people, are you bored? Let Presidente entertain you. Oh, is nothing fun anymore? Let Presidente be all the fun you need. You don't enjoy life? Let Presidente enjoy it for you. And as we strive, our efforts are protected by our brave Tropican army. Our fighting men and women give no quarter, and neither do our soldiers. I have heard it said that Tropico is no fun. Well, soon it will be twice as entertaining as it ever was, and half as boring too. That's 4 times the amusement for everyone. So vote El Presidente for the future that you deserve. All of you. Viva Tropico!
Yay! And a nice big round of applause. Okay, so now the next quest that we need to accomplish successfully is to win an election by any means necessary. And there are several ways you can go about winning a presidential election in Tropico 6. But right now our approval rating is not too shabby at all. Now the election itself, because we've given a speech here, will not now be held until the following year. So we need to wait until, I believe it's August 1920. Sorry, not 1920, 1916 for the actual election. But what we need to do in the meantime is just make sure that we keep this support rating as high as possible by checking out all the various needs that we've been looking at throughout the last few minutes, and making sure that we just accommodate those needs for folks. Now in particular, we're going to want to start with reducing homelessness. If we go on to, go on to the overlays, and if we look at residential, no, actually forget that for now. If we go over to the almanac and then go over to happiness, we can see that some of the low things include fun and housing. So for example, if we go on housing, we can see that homelessness is particularly high, and that's because all of these people are living in shacks. And as I mentioned earlier, if they're living in shacks, they're classed as homeless. So we're going to want to go ahead and start building bunkhouses over the shacks. Now once more, it's pointless building any other residential buildings because our citizens just aren't rich enough to afford them. So let's just go ahead and chuck some of these down. We can of course spend some money if we want to go ahead and build these instantly, which I might very well do. Let's just get a few down here, and then we'll try that again. Yeah, quick build. And we'll do that in the other two as well. Want to be careful, don't want to run out of money too quickly. But we would like to just keep people happy, because as you can see, the approval rating is dropping once more, and we won't get an opportunity now to hold another speech before the next election. There will be a couple of things we can do, but we won't be able to have that nice boost that we just had there, 20% from a speech. So we just need to try and make sure that we are keeping people as generally happy as they can be. And don't forget, we have got 3 islands to go ahead and work with in order to do so. Look at all these shacks. Just as we start to get closer to the election, which is actually taking place now in February 1917, so I got the date wrong. But we get this little bit of tidbit telling us we can actually rig the election if we want to. And while that will help us not get a game over if we're particularly low in our support, I'm not going to do so on this occasion. I think we can keep it above 50%. And the reason for that is because after the election, our support will drop quite rapidly and we'll have to work very hard at keeping it relatively high again, or getting it back relatively high. So yeah, it's a good option for those of you that have all of a sudden realised the prospect that you might get a game over. But other than that, you're not really going to want to start rigging elections all that regularly. So I've stuck some, as you can see, fun fairs and circuses and just all kinds of stuff around to try and keep people's happiness relatively satisfied. And it looks like, you know, we're hovering around the 60 to 70% mark here. So once again, I'm just going to go around making sure that everybody's happy in terms of their housing and whatnot. I can see a few of these shacks just popping up over the place, and I don't want to see them, to tell you the truth. So we'll put some bunkhouses in their place instead. And look at that, our standing is going up now to over 70%. Our standing, by that I mean, sorry, our support. So the language in this game is very specific. Standing is your rate ranking with factions, and support is your chance of being voted by various citizens. So that's what I needed to say, really. But yeah, our workers are working very hard. Our city is starting to thrive. Well, I mean, 300 plus in the place that we're building now. So can we call it a city yet? I'm not sure. But yeah, I think we're doing very well. And we're getting close now to the election. So let's just go ahead and speed things up. Oh,
Election is a landslide, President.
We did it.
The metaphorical kind, not the kind that accidentally reduces the size of the workforce.
We did it.
Keeping all the factions sweet is the key to political success.
And that brings us to the end of the tutorial.
Impossible, which is why politics is such good fun.
So yeah, we are actually done here. We can't actually carry on playing, which is fine. So hopefully then, guys, this has been a decent introduction for you in terms of Tropico 6. And there's a lot more to explore than what we've seen in this video, I assure you of that. But hopefully this has been a decent introduction to the game. If you're interested in picking this one up, I'll leave a link in the video description where you can do so for a little bit cheaper perhaps than you would purchase it off Steam. But you'll still be able to activate it on Steam. So that'll be a link to GMG. But thanks for everybody that stopped by and checked out the video. I hope you've enjoyed. If you have, please don't forget to leave a like. And come back again soon. Maybe I'll even play more Tropico 6 if you guys are interested in seeing more of the game. Take care, everybody. Have a fantastic day. And I'll see you next time. Goodbye.